It's a no. I'm about to say 2000. It's 99 Toyota Avalon. That's what this is. I don't want to call it a Camry. Car came in. It's stalling. Don't know anything yet. I really just start hooking things up as far as pulling the codes and seeing what's on. The brake light's on and the check engine light's on as far as I know right now. There is a check engine light on, and I don't know why, but let's see. Now I let it run for a little bit as I'm trying to get information from this car, and I go to rev it up, and it just like as soon as I go to move the throttle linkage, it just cut off. So it could be a lot of things causing this, but first, of course, we're gonna see if there's any check engine light coming on. But let me start it back up in the meantime. Maybe get it. Oh, it's doing it. And we got codes. Normally Toyotas are really slow, so I know it got a little exhaust leak. She did say it was lagging power. So we got P1300. 446, which is neat because this will cause cars to stall, believe it or not, because it gets stuck open and cause vacuum leaks and just it's unaccounted for air. This will also cause stalling. The igniter circuit 1. What's NC2 revolution sensor? Not sure what that is, but a revolutionary sensor is going to be like a cam or crank sensor. So we got a couple codes here that are related to stalling, and this is pretty interesting here. So we got history, 1705 revolutionary sensor. I just don't know which sensor is NC2. Igniter circuit. Well, it's good that it's not starting right now, which is a great thing. The first thing I would generally do is, of course, supply some fuel to it and see what happens if it starts up or not. But the catalyst efficiency might tell us a little bit if it took a snapshot of the freeze frame. So let's take a gander at that. Oh, no freeze frame data. That sucks. Well, like I said, Toyota's really not that good with all-tail, and it takes forever to load up PID data sometimes. So what I'm going to do... since I got some codes here, and I got it on camera, I guess I can clear these all out and see which one immediately comes back. So that's that. That's that. I'm gonna be patient. So I'm gonna let this let it clear out, cut it off, cut it back on, let it run, let it stall, and then try to pull another code and see what comes back. So I don't know why these are still in here. These are pending. That's strange that it's going to be a pending code and the car hasn't even been ran yet. But I'm going to play around with this, go back in and out of things, and then I guess go through a process of elimination and tackle what comes back first. And because it seems like ignition related, because when the car stumbles and stalls, it just shuts down. The idle doesn't drop and stall like an idler control valve would. A fuel cut or fuel related issue wouldn't be the issue, it seems, because how it doesn't slowly starts to stumble and go out. It just shuts down. Could be, but it doesn't seem like it. It seemed more ignition related, being that there's some codes in here ignition related. So I'm gonna find out, and once I formulate a game plan, I'll be right back. The car's consistently broken now, so I try to start up and it's not doing anything. So what I want to do now is turn the key off and on, cycle that, see if I hit a fuel pump prime. I also can probably find a Schrader valve or breaker line or something like that, like right here by the fuel grill, to see if any fuel squirt out. That will help me deduce what's probably going on. You know, if it's not getting a crank signal. Sometimes cars, if it doesn't have a crank signal, it's not going to prime the fuel pump. So let me cycle the key on and off, and let me apply a little throttle and see if it starts up. So I cycled the key off and on the first time I started up. The second time I gave it gas and it hit and started up. Let's see if there's any more codes that came back. Just doing it again now, so hopefully it'll shut down. I'm gonna go into the generic. There we go. Just shut down. And it really sounds like something ignition related because it hits. It wants to stumble. It'll idle, stumble, and it just shut down like that. So I went into the generic feature to clear the codes out because for some strange reason in the bidirectional portion, it didn't want to clear all the codes. I'm not understanding why. But clear all the codes. The check-in light is officially off, and just gonna let it see what comes back up. In the meantime, while I'm waiting to cut off, I probably could tap on the module. The igniter sits by the airbox here on this model here. And I mean, that's a common problem. You know, igniter goes bad, but hell, how do we test that? Don't know. I know sometimes the coils could go bad and short out and cause it to stall once it gets one bad coil. That could happen. I mean, you know, there's a clue here is like a wire replace. Don't know. So we're going to see what comes back, and I know, you know, the map sensor, you know, that could be the cause of it. Even though we don't have a fault code, the car is old and might not be intelligent enough to see if there's any issues. But let me look at the PID data since I'm in the generic feature. Hopefully I can get some context clues within that, and point me in the right direction. So since the code came back, the P1300, I just took a Phillips head to get those two screws off, and we're right by the airbox, of course, and it's right here by the shock tower. The first thing I'm gonna do is obvious that I have power. Before I start hooking up my oscilloscope, I'm gonna check my ground wire here, this black and white one, do a wiggle test, and see what's happening, see if there's if I have low resistance. Yeah, it's a possibility. Golly, it's a possibility the ground could be faulty. Alright, the key's off, engine off, all that, everything's off. So I'm gonna check this ground for the ignition module, the igniter, and it's gonna be the black and white wire. I'm grounded on the frame, not the frame, but front of the head. The ground for this is going to be on the intake manifold, but they're both connected. So see where we're at 0.6 ohms, which is good. So the only other thing I could do is like scope this module here and see if there's any like drop-offs, whether the signal's coming in or either going back out, see if there's any discrepancy. So there's 3 wires going in, well 4 wires going in. 3 are from the PCM, and the other one of course is going to the PCM with the ignition confirmation. So I guess that confirmation is going to be what's going in is coming back out, and if there's some type of discrepancies, it'll register as a fault. So I'm gonna try to use 2 channels, and if so, I'll use 3. Probably hook up to one of the coils. So let me figure out how I'm gonna do that. But of course, the lesser the better, because I don't want to have to move all those wires and have some issues. But I've been having some issues with the oscilloscope with one of the wires, man, I've changed it because one of them was grounding out. Not sure if that caused any faults or not, but been in the stall now. We're gonna get hooked up. Hopefully we'll be able to find out what's going on with it and see it actually fall off, which will be pretty exciting. I am hooked up at the module. I got 3 channels hooked up. Let me get my, cause I had to write it down, cause man, I'm like messed up here. I couldn't remember everything. So I was at, go to the internet. So I'm on the ignition confirmation, the IGF. I'm on the T1 and C1. So the input tends to correspond with C1. So I think I'm where I need to be on that. There should be like a square wave coming up and going in, and this module is going to interpret it as a charge time, like dwell, and you know it's going to perform the event. So let's get that. Let's get that going. Let me see. So I'm on 20 volt scale, 100 volts. I'm probably need to use an attenuator, but you know if I break it, I buy it, and I gotta buy another one if something happens. So hopefully Alltel is not looking if I have to use my warranty. The red here is confirmation. The blue is going to be the input from the PCM to trigger this green event here from what we're seeing. So we can look at the peak of this blue here and the valley of the green here. So the valley of the green is the coil getting charged, and then once that signal there falls off, immediately we see a firing event happen. And if I zoom in on that, we'll actually see everything transpire from the primary going out to the secondary. So it's pretty neat here. So excuse me. These are 5 volt signals, it seems, from the ignition confirmation and the input signals from the PCM. Those sensors on here are VR sensors, variable reluctor sensors, so they generate a alternating waveform, not a square wave. The computer interprets that and sends out a square wave here for the module to take and send out to the coils for the signals to fire. But right now I just sit and wait, and hopefully I can capture something happening in regards to this module here. And I'm hoping that me disconnecting and reconnecting things didn't fix anything. I'm hoping. So I'm just gonna let it sit, let it do its thing. And if I happen to capture something, hey, I'll take a screenshot and we'll analyze it. But can't fix nothing that ain't broke, and you know these look normal. You know, you got input and output, so and despite the little noise you see up here, but let's sit and wait. All right, you won't believe it. It's literally been 40 minutes of running. The car has installed. Not one time. Not one time. So I'm like, well, what the hell do I do now? I mean, it literally stalled like several times before I hooked the oscilloscope up to it. So, I mean, damn. I don't know what I did. I don't know. I know I cleaned the ground. I took the ground wire off that works with that module, the igniter, and I messed around with the wires here to the coil. Honestly, it had a little blip, but I mean, the car has not stalled since. It has not stalled. So I'm like, I don't know what anybody else would do. I'm like, do you just shoot a part at it, or do you give it back to the customer and still charge them like, hey, you know, still got to pay for time, I'm sorry, you know, I don't know, I'm kind of curious. I'm gonna let it sit and ride out, I guess, for a little bit longer, and see what happens. Hopefully it'll produce something. It'll stall. But like I said, I did move this coil down here, this coil wire, and it had a hiccup, but it didn't stall. So I might just pull that off and inspect that, make sure that there's no issues between like the insulator or the connector itself. So I probably might just do that now. Day 2. Finally, I got this car to stall again. And let me just go back and tell you. Yesterday, you see my wires ran through the inside of the car. I drove it around with a Chipotle and monitored the oscilloscope. you don't understand. Monitor oscilloscope. No discrepancies, no fall offs, no stalling, no nothing. I couldn't even get the P1300 to come back. All right, I drove it back home, did a little more research. I came back today. I was like, okay, well, let me check the idle air control valve. Tap on it, nothing. I was going to do the tapping test. Check the coils again, nothing. I mean, I'm like, what's the only variable here that I've done besides doing stuff that I probably shouldn't have, like cleaning grounds? But I did check the grounds. The grounds were fine. I tapped on the crank sensor. They didn't do anything. I just want to see if like tapping it will encourage it just to shut down. At least it'll give me an idea. Okay, let me scope it. So this is the only thing I did. Well, 2 things I did was since I had the module just sitting there, I put a ground to it because the module does ground itself out on the frame, or if something happens, something could ground itself out, right? I mean, this is my conjecture. So I put a ground wire here, and I'm not sure if this had anything to do with it, but I'm just trying to get everything back normal to figure out what the hell is going on with this. So I just put a ground wire alligator clipped from here and jumper to the body of the igniter there. Now finally, once it's been running, went back to the coils. I even checked the voltage of the coils. So I'll basically ground my other lead on the negative post of the battery, check for 12 volts at the top of the coil, and see if there's anything pulling down, because if the coil short out, it'll cause the igniter to short out too. So it just stalled, and I just got the camera back on. So right now I'm gonna try to start it up with it in its broken phase. But before I do that, let me go get the oscilloscope hooked back up really quick. All right, excuse me. Bear with me, because I'm trying to catch everything as everything transpires. So again, the car just shut down. I'm going to start it up and start this over again. Try to capture what I can. All right, cool. Oh shit! Damn it! Why did I do that? Please capture what I just. Nope. I'm so stupid. Let's try it again. So here it is not running. This is just the startup there. There's a lot of interference and noise with the feedback or confirmation there, because that was our confirmation, the orange. The blue was supposed to be the that should have been the output for the C1, if I recall. So that was basically the input going to the module, and the output was the green trace. So we have bad signals, no spark. So there's no spark, the green trace, but there was a hit there. So there was something, but we had no confirmation or no type of event or anything going on after that. So once it shut down, that was it. So here's the starting. There's a lot of noise there. There's no good square wave for the output. So the confirmation should be the information coming back out. The input, there's no input going back in there. So if there's bad inputs, could be the crank sensor. Let me see what I can capture again. Okay, stop it again. Go back. So we had a hit there on the input, but no confirmation. That was an attempt to hit there. So if it's not trying to run, what I'll do, I should probably scope the crank sensor, but the thing is that's insulated, so I have to go right to the sensor there. So I know I don't have anything coming back out. I had somewhat of a signal coming in. And I guess to eliminate all the confusion, I would really have to scope that crank sensor. Another thing, I can see if I have some type of fuel prime, because if there's no feedback, the fuel pump shouldn't work, if I recall properly. So let me spray something. Spray something here in the car. It seems more fuel related. If I spray fuel in there and it want to stay running, then that seems more fuel related. Let me put my little device here too and keep fuel added. Hopefully we can keep fuel added in there like so. So I can administer fuel, stay running. So I'm capturing the wave now, and cut the fuel out. Alright, so if I keep adding fuel, seem like we got ignition confirmation and an actual good event there. So I'm gonna tackle the fuel system. He's still on, of course, engine off. Just the fuel line I'm cracking. I'm gonna let this. Just let this hang here. So that's loose. I'm gonna start it up and see if there's any fuel coming out of this. I gotta try to hook up a fuel gauge to it, or try to manage to. Okay, there's gas coming out. What the fuck? Let's see if we got injector pulse. Like I said, the car should hit on its own. So I said short. Should start up on its own. That's my biggest thing right now. This black and red wire does have 11 volts, and it's gonna be ground side switch there. I can take my oscilloscope and hook up to the injector and see what it's doing. Let's do that. That's the craziest thing. It's still saying igniter, and I don't want to be the dead horse changing the idle air control valve, but only other thing I would say, just hook up to all the coils with 3 channels, since there are 3 coils in the wasted spark setup, and see which one has a discrepancy. I mean, it's the ignition confirmation only signifies that there's information coming back out from all the inputs. So the 3 inputs that's going in there, all those are generating signal, and all those are sending back confirmation to the PCM. So I don't want to be a dead horse with the idle air control valve. Let me just hook up on these, get on the 12 volt side. Since it's a simple circuit, it's only 2 wires. It's going to have a 12 volt constant and the ground side switch coming from that module there. And whatever one is bad, we're going to see some discrepancies. Again, I moved that connector on the far end there, and it started acting stupid. So let's see what happens. Alright, the coils are bad. I'm going to explain why. I changed the plans. I didn't hook up on the wires there because, again, there was something with that wire. When I moved it, things happened. I'm on the ignition module for the outputs going to those coils. Green, red, and pink. So what happened, 2 of these, the blue trace stayed up. 2 other traces dropped. 2 other traces dropped. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to move this wire over here on this end, and I'm going to show you that it should fall off. Because once that wire came back up, it was working okay. Shit, now I don't want to do it. Don't want to do it now. I wonder if it had anything. Let me start it up. Oh, there you go. There you go. It fell off. Booyah. Okay, stop it right there. There you go. Right there. It fell off. So here's the issues, is lying with the coil, not the module itself. Now when it stayed down, it didn't want to run. As soon as it came back up, then it wanted to work. And strangely, it affected the other coil on this side here. So let me see if I can move this coil and see what happens. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to move this should be coil number 2. This bank 2 that we're on. What I'll do, I'm just going to move the entire wire here. Let's start up and do it. Shut up. There we go. So that wire, the connection's bad. Let's pause it. Let's go back. It doesn't show anything, but I need to figure out which coil am I on. If we look at that one, I think I screwed something up. So it's going to be my green trace. You can see how it's going to be the green trace, because you can see that it has a lot more. No, wait, I think I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong. Let's zoom in a little more. It's gonna be the blue. That's the only one that has discrepancy in it. Blue, green's questionable. Red even's questionable. But the thing is, I mean, I still could be wrong, because the thing is, it affects the entire module. So let's start it up and take a better look at it. So it's okay, here we go. So it's falling off. Let me change the scale here. Come back and zoom in. It'll change. So green is up where it's supposed to be. Red is the only one that's falling off. Red is my channel A, and I can follow channel A back to that pink wire. Let me look. All right, yeah, so I simply just disconnect my oscilloscope and follow it back to my channel A. So yeah, that pink wire, this one on the far end, the number 2 cylinder here, is going to be the culprit. It just have a bad connection. So basically the connector needs to be replaced, because when that fails, it's causing that module to short out or cause some discrepancies. And I pulled it off, so I already seen like how the connector is. It's questionable, but you would imagine it will still have a good connection. So that connector needs to be replaced, and this module is fine. So we saved $390 something. So I could change the coil. I would feel better doing both and the connector, but let me play with this a little bit so we can get this back on track. So there we go. So I'm playing with the wire, and the wire is definitely coming back on. So it came back. Let me play with it again, pull it, tug on the wire. I gotta figure out where's broken in the wire though, because the connection seems okay. I could swap the coils, see if the issue follows itself, which I'm gonna do, but I got another car I gotta look at real quick. But it's either that coil or the connector, and likely it's gonna be the connector, but I'm gonna swap them, or simply just do a resistance test between there and my pin down here. Do a wiggle test, and maybe I can find a short or wherever's going on that coil, but that connector needs to be replaced. I got all my parts here. We're going to do a quick resistance test from the connector, the pink pin that's going, the signal wire, basically. So it's a signal wire. So from there all the way out to the module there. And that I'm just going to do a wiggle test, and that'll let me know if there's some issues with my wiring. And you know, the more I mess around with this, the more it's like this pin is just bad. I mean, this is not even sitting in there. So I know that's the problem. It's like it want to come out. So, and this is what I found last time. The divider is sitting inside the coil there, and things were just kind of like this. So I'm still going to take some precaution and just test the wiring integrity. It's going to be my pink here. So that's what I got. So I'll make sure my oscilloscope is disconnected. Everything is disconnected. I'm just going to move this around so there's no change. So it really just confirms that this connector is just bad, and all I gotta do is just repair the connector with a new one, and here it is. $40 for some freaking wire. So I'm gonna try to make this as neat as possible. It's only 2 wires, so we can't really screw this up. We can, but we're just simply just going to match the top with the bottom. So the bottom is going to be signal, and I'm going to go as far as like just taking a marker and coloring the bottom one, which is going to be a ground side switch. So I'm going to do that and get it repaired. I'm also changing the coil just in case the coil is shorted out. I don't want this car coming back. It's not a fact of being right. It's the fact of being right and ensuring that this lady don't get stuck on the road or come back for anything, because I'd rather have my integrity than take a chance with this pride thing. So, all right, let's get to work. Dropping everything. They say you gotta slow down to speed up. Oh shit! As I was about to cut myself. Oh gosh. So this pink wire is the one I was referring to, which was plausibly the culprit, sort of. But I'm assuming what happened, moving this wire, just brought them together, caused them to short out, or either inside the coil there caused it to lose a connection, which will cause this car to stall. Brand new. I lost my other one. I think another tool ate it, which I believe either developed feet and walked off. This one does work a lot better though, to be honest. Hit it with the old wire tape so it'll brace everything together. I literally had a mechanic at the parts store just like tell me like, oh, your computer's bad. I'm like, computer's not bad. Like, man, like, how the hell the computer is going to be bad if the coil is shorting out the module and the signal doesn't even get returned to the PCM? I mean, like, that doesn't logically even make any sense. You know, hey, I should have threw a PCM at it, right? That's what I should have done. But, you know, hey, I like talking to people, and I like their feedback. And I even, like, dumbed it down to why it would be what I'm replacing. Let's see if I can get this to look natural. Back natural. If I can get it to act natural, we'll see. Alright, let's put a coil in here. I ain't the smartest guy in the world, but you know, close the door for compromise, right? Just like I'm not even the most organized guy in the world. running around looking stuff in front of my face. That light trying to act stupid. Uh-oh. New coil. So import direct. And let's put a little juice on it. It's totally professional now. Alright, let's see if we can get this to sit totally natural. Like, come on, two aftermarket part compatibility. There we go. Alright. This joint where I soldered is right there, so pretty sure. Alright, so here's the firing event. I'm gonna do a wiggle test because I don't think the oscilloscope is really that important right now. So we're gonna push down on this, move it around, and there's no issues. No problems. Just sitting up like it's supposed to. Sitting up. So yeah, so we're good, man. This car is knocked out, finished, done. It is like end, I guess. It's done. So I'll say the spew for. I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this damn thing because that was a lot that I've been through before I even got to that point. But luckily I was able to look at the context clues of what happened with this car early on when I had to analyze and just process everything I've done the day previously. But I didn't think too much of it. When I moved the connector, it hesitated, hicked up. That was it. And test driving it, went through several miles with no issues or anything. And I really did think it was going to be something idling related. Checked the fuel, we had fuel, but for some strange reason, it still wasn't firing. Luckily, I had the bright idea to hook up to the outputs. I'm glad I did that because I would have been beating a dead horse checking the idle air control valve. But from previous experiences, I've wasted a lot of time testing things that I thought were a fluke when it came to check engine lights. So we have to trust the car, but it can point us in the wrong direction. But being that this ignition system was registering as a fault, I tell myself, hey, stick to your guns. So hooked up to the outputs, saw that there was a fall off with cylinder 2, it should be cylinder 2, on the ignition coil, and it was a drop in spark, a drop in voltage. So that is a clear indication that the ground side switch is grounding out or pulling the voltage down. And I would not have been able to see that even though I took my multimeter and checked the top pins here, the top wires for voltage. They showed volts, they displayed volts, but due to the certain circumstances, it would fall off. And I'm thinking, even if it probably was pulling the ground, I think, which I might have been wrong, it probably was a lost connection in not getting a feedback signal going back to the signal wire. So it could have been two things. Shorting, which I highly doubt. That. I really think it was just a loose connection inside of that connector, which is why it was falling off. And when it was partly pulled out a little bit also. So it makes more sense for it to be a bad connection, being that the pin was, you can see the grommet inside of there, or a little insulator coming out. So it was a 1300 was resolving. So all the other check-in light codes were negated, being that they didn't follow back up except for P420. So this does need a catalytic converter, or the exhaust leaks need to be remedied, because it does sound like an exhaust leak here. Other than that, hey, this car's fixed. Lesson learned. What did I learn? Just work slow. Take your time. Luckily the customer was patient. I got it for 2 days, and things worked out pretty well. So I will see if this car will stand up to the test of time. It was very interesting to use the oscilloscope, the maxi-scope, to see what had happened, what was going on, and man, it is a very useful tool, very useful. But we'll see if this car stand up to the test of time, and see what happens with it. If it comes back for any other thing. These Toyota videos that I have are very popular. I get like 100 views. They're very popular. But hey, you're not going to know if anything's screwed up with this car or not. So hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel. Stay informed. Have that reassurance in my work. And see you on the next one.